I'm Donna Hale from the CHBE department. I had a statement and then some questions to ask. It's definitely been an issue with racial issues among public safety officers here on campus. I didn't even know that that was still an issue because we had issues like this up to 7 years or so ago when I had to address an issue on behalf of a female student who came into my office in tears because the same public safety officer would stop her in front of other students and question her and make her show ID and so on and so forth. So, and the fact that I received an email at the beginning of this year from one of the student organizations saying that they were going to actively pursue this issue because it's still a problem 7 years later says to me that it's definitely an issue that's gone unaddressed for all of that time. And it's still an issue today. Who specifically, what nationality specifically, I can't tell you all of them, but I know that there's definitely racial discrimination practice among certain students on campus. So when you say that the students should get certain information, that includes what? Badge numbers, names, so on and so forth, and who specifically can they contact in the public safety office, not just somebody in the department or someone in the public safety office or department or a superior that they can list and say this is who you should contact if there's such a problem. And can that be included in the guidelines that you have for all the other issues that come up in procedures regarding student safety and practices?
So, all those kind of issues or complaints should be coming to me. However, I'm not here 24 hours a day, so if there's an incident that occurs on off hours, even if it's on regular days, hours, there's always a supervisor, a white shirt supervisor on duty. Contact that individual, and that individual will get the information that's available, and it will eventually work up to my office. And once I get knowledge of an issue or a problem like this, it'll be my responsibility to follow up on it and make sure that it gets addressed. The process starts. Yeah. All right. So we got Brian Webster, our supervisor, day shift supervisor. They wear the white shirts and the vests. So they stand out as the shift manager. So look for the officers in the white shirts, and they'll be responsible for getting the information to the right people so that we can get the right thing done.
So that's the way to report specific behavior when you can identify the individual. However, if this is a general concern, I think that it is a serious enough concern that it could be a topic for a separate meeting where we could engage with representatives from the student body and discuss the issue. There may be, and we can explain what we try to do in keeping everyone on campus safe, and also hear different methods that are maybe inappropriate or could be done better. But certainly there is no encouragement of racial profiling. Anything that our officers are doing should be strictly due to a concern about safety on campus.
Yeah, to that point of holding another meeting, I'd really encourage reach out to SGA, reach out to your student organizations, use our collective power to move this conversation forward, because it is an important thing that we discuss as a community and hold the right space to do that.
So we actually were in dialogue trying to set up a specific meeting on this topic, and the advice I received from the student body was let's just hold it for this meeting since we couldn't set up a separate one between the time we met with the SGA reps in December and now, but certainly I would encourage setting something up after this meeting. We just passed out about 10 copies of contact information for Art and myself and Steve and Teresa. Certainly the direct contact for issues like this would be Art. He is the director of public safety. And it's also online. You can find their contact information on the IIT Public Safety website and Facebook page.
Thank you. And another note about the microphones, I've just gotten word that the speakers are having trouble projecting, so if we could speak very closely to the mic to ensure that the recordings, etc., people in the back can pick up what we're speaking. Thank you. Another question about, are there procedures followed to secure areas that have had recent incidents of crime, or areas that are just more prone to crime or dangerous activity than other areas?
That's an ongoing process where we shift resources to areas that we recognize as having problems, or with the hope of discouraging any additional problems. So it's an ongoing problem. It's an ongoing issue. We're constantly making decisions on how to best use, our vehicles, our officers, our cameras, and things like that. So in this type of work, you're always adjusting in order to meet the goal. So the short answer is yes. Okay, so an example of that would be the recent problem we had on 31st Street. There was extremely unfortunate situation there, and as a result, we immediately started changing where our folks would be emphasizing their visibility. We ended up contacting the Chicago Police Department. Since that's the border for the 1st and 2nd districts, we contacted sergeants in both those districts, advised them what we were dealing with, and they adjusted their resources also so that there would be increased visibility there. So it's not just our department that's making the adjustments. We're depending on the Chicago Police Department to make those adjustments also. So we reach out to them. I think we have a pretty good relationship with them, and they were very helpful in getting this kicked off right away.
So I have a question in regards to that. So prior to our tragic incident that happened about 2 weeks ago, before that there were 2 armed robberies almost back to back. So did you all respond? It sounds as if after that tragic incident you all made changes to better the safety over there. But when those 2 armed robberies occurred, were there any changes made, because it would seem as if that was a specific crime targeted area? So I would assume that after those 2 incidences, they would have been like, okay, let's go over there and let's make sure we have that area secured. So was it after the tragic incident, or was it after the armed robberies that you all decided that you needed to have better security in that area?
It was after the robberies, and let's be clear, there were not 2 armed robberies. There was 1. The other was not an armed robbery. And one of those 2 events did involve one of our students. The other did not. That was on State Street. But we did react after the robberies to shift our resources and increase our vigilance on the north end of campus. And then, since then, we've also added an additional officer to our staffing and increase the Chicago Police Department's visibility and watch in the area north and south of 31st Street. That's where the 2 districts come together, and both districts have committed to give us extra watch in that area. Going back over the past several years, we've done similar things where we've had increased activity on Michigan Avenue outside Gonzales Hall. There were several incidents about a year to 18 months ago. We added an additional watch at that location, which remains in effect ever since then. Going back about 3 years, right before the winter break, there were several incidents around the E1 building, now the Retaliata Engineering Center it's known as. We added an additional patrol through those buildings at that point in time, and that patrol remains in effect. And since then, we really haven't had any incidents in or around those specific buildings. Also on the south end of campus, we added an additional watch, basically beginning in the late afternoon and then carrying through the evening, and that was 2 to 3 years ago as well, which has had a very positive impact on the level of crime there. So we think the adjustments we've made on the north end of campus, and I would also add that a lot of what we're aware of and we put alerts out on is because our officers are so vigilant. In the armed robbery that involved one of our students, the primary suspect was apprehended. He is off the street. He had a prior record, so he won't be coming back. And also our officers responded to the unfortunate incident in time to stop the suspect from leaving campus. You can imagine what this campus may have been like had they not gotten there in time, but they saw something that looked suspicious, got there in time to know what was going on so that we had that information that morning.
And before I sit down, since you mentioned alerts, how quickly do you all send out an alert versus when the incident happens? Because in the incident the other day where there were gunshots on the corner over there, the students heard the gunshots around maybe an hour and a half before the actual report was sent out, the alert. So I'm curious as to how quickly do you all how's the system set up that you all can get the information out? Is it not a fast system where you all aren't able to right when it happens send out the information to us, or how does it work out that an incident could happen, but it could be the street was clear. When I saw the alert, the street had already had traffic moving through it, so I was confused as to why we had an alert that wasn't reflecting what could be seen from my window outside.
Okay, so that's a very good question. That alert was more of an advisory. There was no threat to campus. Let me contrast that to the morning of January 28th, when we sent out an alert, which, by the way, was totally unrelated to the incident in which our student, Jay Morris, died. At the same time we were dealing with the aftermath of that situation, we received radio chatter from the Chicago Police Department that they had an incident going on off campus where somebody thought they saw a weapon and they were pursuing that person, and it was headed in the direction of our campus. We immediately issued an alert, erring on the side of caution, because we felt that that was something that might endanger our campus. That went out the instant that we got that information, and as soon as we realized that the situation was resolved, we issued an all clear, and it turned out that the initial information we based our alert on wasn't completely accurate, but we still would always err on the side of caution. Whereas on Friday night, that incident occurred as the vehicles were leaving campus. So by the time people heard the gunshots and responded, the cars were gone. It takes a little bit of time to find out exactly what happened in a situation like that, but we knew that that was not an ongoing threat to campus. One of those vehicles actually went to Mercy Hospital, and that's where the person who was injured was taken. And then the other car was actually found abandoned in a gas station several blocks west of campus. So we, in that case, waited to make sure we got the right information and put out an accurate alert, advisory to the campus. That was more of an advisory. If there's ever an incident where we feel the campus is in danger, even if it's in question, we'll send an alert out with what information we have at the time, and we may not have all the information. It may be a very vague alert, avoid this area, if we still feel that the campus may be in danger, which was the case on the morning of January 28th. That was not the case Friday night. The event we knew was not a threat to campus by the time we really had time to hear about it and know what was going on.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Khadija. And yeah, I welcome you. And just to let everyone know, this mic is your mic. This is a two-way conversation, so own it if you want to own it.
So I wanted to say that I do remember the time when you talked about 3 or 4 years ago when there was an increase in public safety coverage across the campus, but at that time too there were several robberies taking place and assaults taking place on students at that time. And I'm all over the campus, so I saw the increase in public safety, coverage and so on and so forth. But as of late, I also noticed a huge decrease in that public safety appearances throughout the campus. And I also know that at the same time, the north end of the campus, especially in that Keating area, has always been poorly lit and poorly covered in that area. So I wasn't surprised by the robberies and events that took place over there anyway, because it's happened before in that area. It's very dimly lit over there. That said, you mentioned that there would be also police cooperation, that the Chicago Police Department will also be included. For how long? Because in most situations when there's an increase in crime, we see an increase in policing, but then when it seems to calm down, we also see a decrease take place. So how long will the Chicago Police Department be involved in this coverage of the campus?
Well, I would say as long as we continue communicating with those districts involved, that they will be responding to us. So I don't see that decreasing anytime soon. I'll be making phone calls this week to make sure that the individuals that I spoke with understand that we appreciate their cooperation and their sensitivity to things. But we also intend where we expect that they continue with assisting us in keeping that area safe. So it's just a matter of dialogue, and I think that we respect what they do. They know that, and as a result, I would expect a similar response to what we received originally.
I would also like to clarify if there's a perception that public safety presence has decreased in certain parts of campus, then we'd appreciate knowing where you think those areas are, because the facts are we've increased resources. Our resources deployed now are the highest that they've been, at least since I've been here in the past 4 years, and they have not decreased lately. One thing that has decreased, and this is important to realize given the unfortunate couple of weeks that we've had, but crime on campus has steadily declined over the past 3 to 4 years. And last year was the lowest that we've seen it on campus in quite some time. That's not to treat lightly the incidents that we have had recently, because we're responding very aggressively to those. And we are reviewing lighting on campus, both maintenance of lighting, but also additional lighting in certain key spots that may be underlit.
As a follow-up on the notifications, I have concerns about the notifications that were sent out on January 28th. It said use caution in this area, and it didn't specify what area at all. It didn't even say that it was main campus.
Okay, that was my mistake. Our alert system doesn't put the subject message in texts, but it puts it in emails. So when I sent that first alert out, the email said near 31st at State. The texts, unfortunately, didn't have that. So that's why there was quickly a follow-up email that indicated that the area was 31st at State. That was a lesson learned. It's a new system. From now on, the location will always be in the body of the message so that it comes through in both the text and the email.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Good question.
So, speaking to this matter of awareness, alerts are, reactive, preventative awareness. We go through orientation at the beginning of our time here as students. What about ongoing education, reminding students what the resources are, who to contact, what kind of access they have? What's being done in that area of educating?
Okay, well, first of all, we're here today, and we were invited here, so we very much appreciate this opportunity. This is the kind of dialogue that we encourage and we want to continue, and we'd be willing to come back to a town hall or any other type of forum at any point in time, whether it's with a large group of students or a small subset of students, or faculty or staff. We also meet at least once per semester with SGA representatives, anyone that they want to bring along. I'm at that meeting, Art is at that meeting, our provost is at that meeting, Katie is there as well. You'll occasionally see emails from public safety which give advice on how to stay safe, not only on campus, but also traveling around the community, around Chicago. Tips on ways to keep yourself from getting involved in a situation, preventative type tips, as opposed to what to do once something does happen, because we'd much rather have it prevented. And then those are also often posted in IIT Today, those type of announcements. There will be one this week, so watch IIT Today, and that will probably be out within the next day or two. Also, I'd like to say that our website and Facebook page are great resources. There's a lot of information on there on how to keep yourself safe. There's contact information, how to reach us in an emergency. Actually, I'm going to pass these out right now, if you don't mind, and ask you to pass these around. And while you're sitting here today, make sure the public safety emergency phone number is programmed into your phone so that you don't have to memorize it if you really do need it. I would also ask if we can pass these around. Thank you. Many hands make light work. The IIT alert system, that is an opt-in system. If you're a student registered at IIT, you will automatically get emails in the case of an alert or an advisory issued through the IIT alert system. But you'll only get a text if you opt in and register in the IIT alert system. So if you have not done that, please do that, because that will then make sure that you get the messages in two ways. And the third way you can get that is through an automated voice alert that will come through on your phone, and you answer it, and there's a computer reading out the text of the alert to you. I'd like for Art and his staff to talk a little bit about why we have the opportunity, and we're on the topic. That was a great question. Just some basic suggestions on how to keep yourself safe, whether you're here on campus or walking or driving somewhere else in Chicago.
Okay, so I'll just start off with just a handful of them, and then I'll pass this over to Steve, who's a public transportation user, and maybe he can share some of the things that he's seen as successful in keeping things safe. So when you're moving about, you know, if you can avoid being by yourself, that's going to help you. Make sure where you're heading before you start your trip. You don't want to be in a situation where you're in an area that you don't even realize how you got there, or you could have taken a safer route on the way out. Avoid being maneuvered into alleys and doorways. Essentially, be aware of what your surroundings are. If you can do that, keep your eyes and ears open, and with a friend, you're going to keep yourself much safer by just taking those basic fundamental precautions. So walk with confidence. Don't walk with your headphones on. Just know what's going on around you. So let me pass this over to Steve, who takes the train in and has some tips on, as you're moving around the city, on what may work.
Yeah, I've been traveling to work here for 3 years using exclusively public transportation. And you know, the tips that I use, even though it has been 3 years, the toughest part is when I look around and I see other people I'm traveling with. You can never just be accustomed to traveling as the way of life. I cannot tell you how many times I see people with their headphones on. That is the number one thing. I've even heard stories from our officers who, when people put on those headphones, they become just one with the music or whatever they're listening to, and everything is toned down from. Or I've heard a tap on the shoulder has startled and scared that person, and that is actually the number one thing that should never happen. That someone comes that close to you, tapping on you, and you have no idea that they're near you. But you know, number one is pay attention to your surroundings. Don't fall asleep. People fall asleep. Some of our students have
fallen asleep on public transportation, and it never ends well. But really is to be alert. When I get on the train, or the green line, or the red line, depending on where I'm coming from, it's getting in your car and it's just looking around and be aware of who's coming in and who's coming out of the train. It is watching people. You want to know if people start eyeing you. This is all because I don't want to become a victim. So this is the steps that I've taken every day. Number one also is I'm only keeping with me what I need. If I'm going to go out for the day in Chicago, I'm going to be there all day. Do I need 2 credit cards? Do I need 3 credit cards? How much cash do I need? I want to just take what the bare minimum with me, so that way if I ever become a victim, if someone approaches me, I know that, hey, I got $5 in my wallet. I'll give them my $5 and I'll be on my way. I don't have to worry about, I don't want to have to, or you guys to worry about having, my whole paycheck that's cashed in my wallet, or, 5 credit cards, my student IDs, driver's license, all that. So it's really traveling with what you need and the bare minimum. And so far for 3 years, using that aspects, I have, unfortunately, I haven't had to have a situation where, I needed to that. But again, I've been doing this for 3 years, and we probably should push this more in the second semester, because after students and people have been coming to work for a while, they become comfortable. It becomes routine, and that's just one thing that I want to press, is that this stuff can never be routine. It has to be an everyday occurrence that, unfortunately, I have to make sure I want to know who's coming on my train, who's coming on my bus, so I don't become a victim.
Thanks, Steve. I think we ought to move on in the interest of time. We'll continue to push information like that out. I would just say that the 2 things that stick in my mind the most from what I read are travel in groups whenever possible, and keep your iPhone in your pocket, and don't use your headphones, because that does 2 things. If you do have it out and are using it, it distracts you, so you can't see an impending dangerous situation coming upon you, and it also puts the most stolen item in America right out there for everybody to see.
Thank you all. We're going to move into facilities and escort services in a moment, but first we have a question.
All right. I stay on 37 and 37 State, and I've noticed and I understand that public safety does a drop to students only for Bridgeport and Lake Meadows and sometimes Prairie Shores. So our campus extends to 35th and State, and 37th is just 2 blocks away. So I understand if not around the year all the time, but at least during the finals and the midterms, when students stay late in the library, they need to drop. I mean, 37th is really not that far, so it's just a suggestion if you can also put 37th into, it's something that public safety can drop us till there, because I have had to get back home at 2 a.m. in the morning, and that was the first day when I did not know that they don't drop till 37th, and I requested the officer, will you please drop me, because it's my first day and I have no idea, I did not have any idea that, public safety doesn't drop to 37th, and they were like, I'm sorry ma'am, we cannot do anything. I said, if something happens to me before I reach home, then anyhow you guys are responsible. They say, I'm sorry ma'am, but if I drop you, I cannot assure that you are going to reach home safely. I mean, that really didn't make much sense to me, but I always thought of talking to someone about this, that if I have seen public safety dropping students at Bridgeport, which is really much more far than 37th, because our campus does extend till 35th, and 37th is just 2 blocks away. So it's just kind of a suggestion, it would be really of great help if you could just pull that in, at least during our exams, so that we can stay in the library and sometimes if required.
We will review that. We have an on-campus escort policy and an off-campus escort policy. They're both posted on our website. So basically, if you need an escort from any place on campus to any place else on campus, that's 24/7. And it may be in a vehicle, it may be with an officer riding beside you on a bicycle, or an officer walking with you to get where you want to go. To go off campus, we used to have a system where if you wanted to ride off campus anywhere within a mile radius, you call public safety. That led to a lot of problems, and the reason is because first of all, we got a lot more calls when it was raining, which is when things are usually safer, which tells us it was sometimes being used more as a taxi than as a public safety service. However, even as a public safety service, there was so much demand that people were having to wait and they would walk anyway. So to serve the highest number of students as most effectively as possible, we converted that to a shuttle system, and we determined, based on data of where people had been asking to be taken, we determined 5 shuttle stops that could be made, and it leaves every 20 to 30 minutes from Galvin Library or Herman Hall, depending on whether it's a weeknight or a weekend. And it goes to those locations because that's where the most students were requesting to be taken. That being said, that policy was set over a year ago, and it's something that we would review to make sure there isn't an increased demand, because maybe now we have more students living in an area that weren't living there before. So we will take a look at that. I can't make any promises.
Maybe not all the, maybe you don't need to keep that, like from 7 p.m. we can avail the public safety, maybe not during that time, but at least during the late hours, maybe after 11 p.m. or something, 11 p.m. to whatever, time in the morning, maybe during the finals or something, you could, this could just be added, because I have faced a lot of difficulty because of this, so it's
we'll take a look at that. But the one thing we can't do is go back to a car taking anybody anywhere they want to go, because the other problem that caused, I forgot to say this because this was even more important here on campus, because even the officers we had assigned to campus weren't on campus all the time. They were running with the shuttles, but we will take a look at that. It's a good question. Thank you.
So a lot of students are curious regarding when there's an increased trend in crimes around this area. Do you have any insights as to who is causing these crimes, or what issues within the nearby community might be leading to this? And if so, are there any preventative measures that public safety or IIT is taking to address these specific issues?
Art's the expert on this. He's a retired state police captain, but I'll just pipe in what he and others have taught me. The best way to address this is to take the perpetrator off the street. And that's what we've done in many, many situations. Again, the armed robbery at Keating, the primary offender is off the street. We had a rash of robberies off campus about a year ago, and Commander Williams from CPD 2nd District got the offenders off the street, and those incidents did go down. It doesn't mean they don't go back up again, because all of a sudden there's another bad guy out there committing crimes. So, Art, do you want to talk about that a little bit from the policing strategy? Sure.
So, unfortunately, the age of criminals is getting younger and younger, and because they're younger and younger, they're not being put into situations where they're off the street. They're usually let up pretty quick, so that could be a problem. That's why the dialogue that we have with the Chicago Police Department is so important for us to do our job better. Is that we're finding out what's going on out there, what is news to us, and when we get that information, we use that to make decisions on where we're going to put our people, where we're going to put our vehicles. What are the areas we're going to concentrate on. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. And Bruce is right. If we're able to put somebody away, or help put somebody away, it takes one more person away from becoming a threat or a problem here on campus. But and it really isn't a situation where it's just the immediate neighborhood. I mean, we're getting people from all over the area that wander onto on our campus. So that's why it's so important for us to be on campus, be visible, and be moving around. So we're giving the impression that we could be popping around any corner at any given time. So that's kind of our overall goal at this point. Okay?
Thank you.
I have a question regarding IIT Alert. Does Vandercook and Sharma students have access to it?
Yes,
Okay.
they do.
Okay, we wanted to know that. And also, I've been listening to you describing your public safety coverage around campus, and it seems to be very reactionary in how you station the officers. So what steps are being taken to make this be more proactive and more preventative instead of just reacting to when something does occur, and work more to spread the coverage so that it prevents the attacks that do occur?
So actually, a lot of the preventive measures that we are taking are actually the officers you're seeing in buildings. We're making sure that the people that are supposed to be in there are in there. When you see us walking through campus, either on foot or in a vehicle, that to me I consider a proactive use of our resources. We have some posts where we have people stationed there at a desk, and that's what our objective is, to make sure that person is controlling access. But for the most part, everybody else is being proactive into what they're seeing. The incident from last week at Keating, that was a proactive move. Our officer was on patrol, saw something what he perceived as being unusual, went to go investigate it, and ended up with the results that he ended up with. So all of that was proactive. We weren't reacting to anything. We were looking for, our officers are constantly looking for things that are irregular or could be problematic, and that's how we were able to find things and address them in a timely manner.
And that includes looking for crimes before they happen. If something doesn't look right, if something looks suspicious, the officers you see on foot or on bicycle, we have several bicycle officers, and driving through campus, they're not just looking for a crime that's occurred, they're looking for things that don't look quite right, and they'll then focus more attention. They'll get on the radio with their colleagues and get some extra attention to go check an area out.
So thank you all. We're going to keep some questions coming, but I know we have gone over 1:30, and that was the posted time. I want to let everyone know, we give thanks to our panel, thanks to everyone who showed up, and keep bringing the questions on. But at this point, I don't want anyone to feel like they have to stay. Got to get to class, please go, get to class, take care of your business, and thank you.
And please check the public safety website and or Facebook page at your convenience. There was a question we haven't gotten to yet about where our emergency call stations are. This map is on the website, and it tells you where all 60 of our Code Blue emergency call stations are on campus.
I wanted to know what are some of the ways public safety can respond to a situation. I noticed that, for example, a low priority situation to a very high emergency situation, and also what are some of the ways the public safety officers can respond to a criminal, I guess. Because I noticed that they only have a live firearm. I don't know if they have a non-lethal ways of handling situations.
So, if I understand the question correctly, you're correct. Well, we do have different priorities how we respond to them, but we depend on the officer and the supervisor to make quick decisions on what level of response we're going to be responding to. So, if it's something as basic as a broken pipe, obviously low priority, and we don't need a lot of resources for that. However, if we've got some drunk guy in an empty academic building, passed out, and obviously no reason for him to be there, obviously we're going to send a few more resources there so that we can control that situation and escalate if we have to, without waiting around for other people to show up. So to make a long story short, it's the experience and the knowledge that these officers have that helps with this quick decision making on the level of response. Does that answer your question?
So, what are some of the actions public safety officers can take in an emergency situation while apprehending someone, I guess?
Okay. So, I think the most important tool that our officers have is their ability to communicate. Everything doesn't have to be the result of force. So if we can get a conversation or some direction going, that's a very important tool in how you address these types of issues. After that, you know, we've got handcuffs if we need it. I mean, we have to impose some force, we can do that. But ultimately, if somebody's life is being threatened, whether it be the officer or a student, we have the capability of escalating to lethal force. All right?
If there are no other questions, it's very informal at this point.
Oh, good.
So just come up and
I have a quick question.
Use the mic.
I got a quick question. So I've been at this school for 4 years, my last semester or whatever. And y'all kept saying, you know, you looking at academic good for certain thing. And I know the policy is like, for 4 years I've been here and I've never been asked to show my ID until like Friday. So what do you look, I know the policy, anytime a staff member asks you to show your ID, you're supposed to comply. That's in the handbook, I signed off by it, But it feels like, you know, cops show like when they're like drug driving, like on holidays, they stop everybody. But it seems like you're picking and choosing who you want to stop. And it doesn't make sense, because I asked like my other friends also come along, go the same route I go, they never been asked. The person who asked didn't ask anybody else around when they walked out. So who are you picking and choosing certain people? Like, what characteristics are you using to choose who is a criminal? Because a criminal is anybody. We don't know a criminal until they commit a crime, right?
Well, just to answer your question, it's difficult to pinpoint what it is that the officer is using to make that decision to ask ID. I would need more information about the particular situation you were talking about.
I mean, it was just, all right, so it's doing broad daylight like this around 3 o'clock afternoon. Pearlstein Hall, which is also the administrative building. So anybody who's looking into going to IIT will go through Pearlstein Hall in general for undergraduate admission. So they wouldn't even have ID.
Right.
So for anybody to even like attempt to ask, I don't look that old. I look like I could want to go to this school. So them to even ask that question, it's like what are you training your officers into what to look for to ask that question? Like TSA trains their officers to look for certain things, so they do selective choosing for who they want to do for extra screenings. Cops do train officers for stops at certain points at certain times for drunk driving. What are you training officers for to stop to ask if they're a student here? And then the second part, what if the person was a guest? It's like, are you saying students can't bring their friends with them when they're studying on campus during broad daylight? It wasn't like I was here at 2 in the morning, and I was doing it 9 to 5. So it's not clicking with me correctly. And you can say, so go ahead and answer the part of it.
All right. So once again,
I know more detail, but go ahead.
It's something that the officer senses or sees that he believes is irregular.
Okay.
Or may be a problem or become a problem. So he's taking a little initiative into making sure that everything remains safe and that everything remains appropriate. So it's a very general response to your question, but there's a lot of little things that these guys are going to look for on any given night or a given day that will be a trigger. I mean, it could be anything, from somebody smoking in a building to.
What about just anybody walking with a book bag on with headphones?
So if I can just...
And then because I have a question for you as well.
No, that's fine.
Because you're dealing a student, the handbook come from your office, correct?
Correct.
So why is it that we must show I know the policy is so we can have students on campus that show our ID, but why don't we edit the handbook so that the way it's more reflective Because there's no need for a student to show their ID unless every student is showing their ID at all times. I understand after the business hour at 5 o'clock, students should show their ID more because that's a more dangerous time and there's more people wandering on our campus. But it was in Pearl State, which is where undergrad admission are, and I have yet to click on the reason why. Unless you have a good answer.
I don't have an answer to that question, but what I wanted to do is make a suggestion, because this is kind of this, along the same veins of what Bruce was talking about earlier as to us meeting as a group to talk about specific issues, and that stems into the reporting thing that we talked about. But you have very good questions. I don't think this is the forum for it anymore because everyone's leaving, but I would be happy to talk about how the handbook's worded, perfect, wonderful.
I do agree.
Do
I
it
agree
anyway.
with you, but
The second, yes, well.
because I agree. I know I signed my life away, and I said.
So there's no good answer right now that you're going to get right
That's
now.
fine and everything.
But I want
like
to
an answer by the
continue
time I
the
graduate.
and so I think within the next 30 days we could probably pull something together so where this group is in a room with you, and I think the gentleman behind you, because I know I've talked to them as well.
I think we need to do that.
Yeah, and we want.
We were trying to set that up again before this meeting, but.
I was going to say I think I have a quick solution to the problem.
Okay, great.
What we could do is just have the officers required to give their identification as well. If an officer were to ask someone on campus, whether it's a student or someone just walking through, they should be able to also give them their information and tell them why they possibly